Japan's unwavering devotion to its imperial lineage. In the West, Japan's royal family is often overlooked. Many people may not even know that Japan still has an emperor, but it does. Emperor Naruhito took the throne in May 2019 after Emperor Akihito stepped down. Though their role is largely ceremonial, the royal family of Japan has a high standard of living. The royal family has over 1,000 staff working for them directly. This includes gardeners, chefs, plumbers, chauffeurs, secretaries, security personnel, and 47 servants per royal. The staff also includes wardrobe managers, royal farmers to farm the family's food, 4 doctors on standby, a silkworm breeder, Shinto advisors, and 30 archaeologists to look after the family's tombs. The Japanese royal family owns a very expensive palace in Tokyo, which is spread out over 379 acres and is located in the biggest city in the world. It was once more expensive than all the real estate in California, but now it is worth about the same as 2.5 San Francisco townhouses. The government of Japan gives the royal family 11.83 billion yen, or around 110 million American dollars, per year to maintain their lavish estates. Additionally, each member of the direct royal family has a personal expense account of 2.9 million USD, and each member of the extended family has an expense account of 269 million yen. Taxpayers' money is being used to fund the extravagant lifestyle of a large family that hasn't been actively involved in running the country since World War II and was not successful back then. The Emperor of Japan is the leader of Shintoism, which is more of a shared belief system than a religion in the way that it is usually understood in the West. It does not have the same strict hierarchies as other religions. Although the royal family of Japan has a long history, stretching back possibly as far as 600 BC, they have been in power for at least 1,600 years. Emperors were seen as gods on earth until the Second World War. Despite this, most Japanese people do not mind paying for the family to live in the way that they do. The British and Japanese royal families have a lot in common. Both use a significant amount of taxpayer money to fund their lifestyles, with the British royal family spending about $93 million in 2019, and the Japanese royal family spending twice as much. Additionally, they both have large staffs and are mostly ceremonial. They both receive public funding and are heads of 2 religions. The Church of England is headed by Queen Elizabeth II, and the Japanese royal family is seen as the living representative of Shinto, the native religion of Japan. The imperial family of Japan is a cultural icon that symbolizes the country's history. They act as a unifying force above political parties. They are like the Washington Monument in the US or the Opera House in Australia, but in human form. They need financial support to continue being a symbol for the Japanese people. After World War II, there were discussions about ending the monarchy altogether since Emperor Hirohito was actively involved in the war. Emperor Hirohito was never held accountable for his crimes during World War II. Instead, he was allowed to continue living in luxury until his death in 1989. This was due to a compromise made between the Allied powers and Japan. The Allies were afraid of the Soviets gaining influence over the region, so they offered Japan a deal to not make them pay for their atrocities. This also meant that the Allies did not have to fight a land war on the Japanese mainland. As part of the deal, the emperor could remain emperor, but he could not wield the same power he had before the war. The country was to be run by an elected parliament, with the prime minister having the most power. The royal family was also trimmed down to just Hirohito and his siblings and their children, and the fund set up to maintain the dynasty only had to fund a dozen royals. Before the war, the Japanese emperor owned all the land and artifacts in the country as his personal property, like someone owning their own home. After the war, this was taken away from him as part of efforts to make the nation more democratic and reduce the emperor's power. Most of the land was given to the government for parks, farmland, and tourist attractions. The emperor was allowed to keep some items as personal effects, like clothes, but nothing of great value. The more valuable assets, like the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, were given to the Imperial Household Agency. This agency was responsible for managing the affairs of the royal family and ensuring they followed the rules. The Japanese royal family is subject to a set of restrictive rules. They cannot vote, hold a job outside of a not-for-profit institution, marry a commoner, or give or receive gifts worth more than $15,000 per year without special permission. This may seem generous to most people, but for world leaders, it is quite restrictive. If a royal wanted to give a gift like a car, they would need to have the request approved by Parliament. These rules, combined with the requirement to meet with many high-profile people, make it easy to reach the gifting limit. The Japanese royal family is not allowed to keep the money they are given by the government for their allowances. They can use it for whatever legal purpose they want, but it does not become their own personal assets. They are also not allowed to use the money to get wealthy. Emperor Akihito spent $200,000 on a wine cellar, but the wine still belonged to the Imperial Household Agency. This is to ensure that the royals do not get wealthy from taxpayer money. The Japanese emperor is different than the American presidents since they were never voted into office and can stay emperor for their entire life. They have become wealthy since all their needs are taken care of by the state for 80 years. The current emperor has a net worth of $40 million. There are tight controls on how they use imperial funds, so they stay in line. The royal family is a public asset and some argue it justifies its cost, but it also helps Japan stay in the good graces of potential trade partners and military allies. The Japanese royal family are ambassadors for the nation and represent Japan in diplomatic matters. They are expensive for taxpayers, but the majority of voters want to maintain the monarchy.